Welcome back, folks. We are here. It's been a little bit of a hiatus, but sure enough, we have arrived. We are here at the scene, and we are ready to shoot yet another episode of the Double Tech Podcast. Folks, this is the only podcast where you have one host wearing a white tank top and a white hat and the other wearing a windbreaker. Trent, how are we doing today?
Dude, so good. Yeah, I hate being that guy. I guess I'm inherently that guy without even trying sometimes. Like, I live in Florida. I get to wear tank tops, and it's so
Yeah.
hot. And
Look at this
I
guy. Whoa, he's tan. Whoa.
when we got on the call, one of the first things I asked Ethan, I was like, "Hey, can you hear the fan that's on? I want to make sure that my audio's okay." I'm like, "Can you hear the fan? Because it's so hot here." But I mean,
Yeah, Trent, why
turn
don't
in
you
the corner.
give us a little insight to the scene. Set the scene a little bit for Trent right now. Where are
Oh,
we at?
so
What's going on outside?
Okay, so right now I'm at my aunt and uncle's house, which is about a half hour north of where I live down here. So they have the pool, they got the lanai, they
Sure.
got
Yeah.
everything going on. So the waterfall. So usually when I have a day off, I mean I only work till 10:30 in the morning. I start at 5:30, and
Oh
then
yeah.
I come up here. So I'm doing this right now. Aunt and uncle are partying out there. My parents are visiting, so they're out there too. Um, it was a
Talk
good
about a
day.
life, man. Talk about a life.
I just wanted to make sure that when I got in here, I mean, we're doing business now, E. I got to make sure
Yeah.
everything's tight. I got to make sure you can't hear the party music. You can't hear the fan, right?
Yeah. Yeah. See, it's strictly business now. You
That's
you
right.
had your time with the elderly get together, and we're
Yeah,
here talking shop. We're
right.
here
Because
talking double tech.
that's probably going to end at about 8 o'clock anyways. So, I got time
Yeah.
after this. But how are you doing, brother?
I'm doing well, man. To be honest, I've been battling these past couple days. I've been sick as a dog. And it was like, so last week Wednesday, I like felt the sickness come over me. And I've always felt like I've had a pretty good handle on my sickness, and I have a sickness routine. And when I don't get to do my sickness routine, I feel like it prolongs the sickness. So I like to hammer the NyQuil, hammer the DayQuil, hammer the throat coat tea, and I like to take steaming hot showers, and I like to breathe in the steam. I don't know if you're like a
Oh,
you
dude, yes.
yeah.
I've heard of that. The steam is really good for your body for a lot of
Yeah.
reasons.
Yep.
Yeah.
I try and breathe in the steam. Okay. And then what do I like to do? I like to drink the emergency the orange powders. Throw those in the water in the mornings, and then that kind of gets your day off right. With that being said, I did not have any Dayquil, I did not have any emergency, and I did not have any throat coat. So it was a rough couple days. And I felt like I was coming over the sickness. And then last night is when my throat started to just kill. And so I just thought I was screwed. And I have spring break coming up. I have a vacation coming up. I'm actually going, folks, if you're listening, I'm going to Trent City, basically 2 hours away. I'm going to St. Petersburg, Florida, and me and Trent are going to get together. Who knows? Maybe do a live pod,
I was
maybe do a
just going to
live
say that.
show.
Yep.
Maybe. Who knows? You never know. Trent's going to meet my lovely girlfriend, Caitlin, and the family, and it's going to be a good time. But we're there for a week. We're there to get some sun. We're there to relax. But it's gonna be a very good time. And you know what? I've been well. To answer your question, I've been
Good.
well. We have some things to look forward to tonight. I mean, we got the women's Final Four. Come on, talk about it. And we got the Detroit Tigers' fourth game of the season, looking to extend the undefeated season against the New York Mets. So we got some things to watch tonight. More importantly, we got some things to talk about. And the first of those things that we are going to talk about, we got a little top five list for you. I hit Trent with this list idea about, let's call it 25 minutes ago. And I said, Trent, come up with a list of the top five worst things that could happen in sports. So basically, this is going to be a list of the top five. If you were the athlete, what would be like the worst thing that could happen to you, embarrassment wise? Like, what could be the most embarrassing thing as an athlete that could happen to you in any sport? And I want to say as well, Trent, on the grandest of stages. So this isn't just like your noon like
Yeah.
foot baseball game. This is like you're in prime time playoffs. What is the worst thing that could happen to you and your embarrassing moment or whatever you want to call it?
Okay, so I don't know if you want to go in order, but I'm gonna go from 5 to 1. So the last thing I'm gonna say is gonna be my top one. I don't know if
Yeah,
you were thinking
you
we're
got to
going
go. You got to go 5-1.
start from 5 to 1. And like you said, you texted me this idea probably 25 minutes ago, so I might be forgetting something completely
Yeah.
obvious. But you and I, Ethan, we pride ourselves that we like to think,
Oh yeah.
on the ball,
Yeah.
quick
We
with the
shoot from the hip.
trigger. But shoot from the hip. I like that. Number 5 for me. I was a swimmer for 10 years. I had a 10-year swimming career, 9 years in school, 1 year in college, and I'm gonna go with false starting. That is, and because that goes for like that track too. Like you're immediately disqualified. You can't even race.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
So
didn't know that.
if you false start and they catch it like no one else goes, then you're done. You don't even race. So like then they just run the race with 7 instead of 8.
So how did that happen? Do you just does your body just start moving and then you just like kind of have to go?
Here's the thing, if you move, you can get back and set. So here's what gets really tricky is there's a guy on a megaphone, all right? He says, take your mark, and then you hear the beep, and then that's when you go. If he says, take your mark, and someone leans, he says, stand. You got to stand back up on the block. So sometimes people are so ready for it, eager for it, that he'll say, take your mark, and then someone moves, and he says, stand. Then you jump, but the guy that moves stands back up, and then he's not screwed, you're screwed. So it's all up here.
So you can only go on the beep. If he says stand, you have to stand. But if you go and he says stand, you're done?
Correct.
That's messed up.
I'm telling you, bro, it is stressful. I can honestly say in my 10-year career, if you want to call it that, I never false started. I was never that guy. But I saw many of them. And I had a lot of teammates that got DQ'd from like big races, and it sucked. And so I'm going to go with that at number 5. We got the Olympics coming up. You always see a false start or 2 in the Olympics, the Summer Olympics. Sure. So there you go.
Okay. You want me to go with my 5?
Yeah, go 5.
Okay. So my number 5, I think this is probably my the one that probably happens the most out of all of the ones on my list. But every time I see it, I just think, what a moment. And this is I think this is the only 1v1 moment, where it's you and somebody else, and this happens to you, getting called out on strikes without swinging. I think striking.
That's on my list.
Striking out looking has got to be one of the most embarrassing things to me, because what a moment of just the pitcher just sheer owning you. Like he owns you. He is dialed. You are clearly unprepared, and you just got punched out, and you didn't even present a fighting chance. You are out. So give me being called out on strikes at the 5 spot.
So I'll jump the gun on this because that was my 3. I'll go back to 4 in a second, but I threw in the qualifier of at the end of the inning. If you do it, if you know what I mean? Like if you got guys on base and you strike out looking to end the inning. That's
a tough walk back.
I mean, the crowd is going to let you hear it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, they're going to let you hear it regardless. But if it's like the first out of the inning and there's still guys on or whatever, I mean, that's one thing. But to do it and then you got to walk back to the dugout while everyone else is running back in, you're like, oh, God.
And from the viewer standpoint, it goes to the commercial break and it zooms in on the batter. And the batter's just taking his gloves off. And you're just like, wow, wouldn't want to be that guy.
Yeah, he's back in the dugout. Okay, so that's my number 3. So I'll backtrack to 4. I'm gonna say this is a little bit outside the box, but I think this is one from a fan perspective, not necessarily an athlete perspective, that I think would be really embarrassing, and that's committing a penalty on a scoring play. You see it in the NFL all the time. A guy breaks off. Adrian Peterson, boom, breaks off. 77-yard run. Oh, holding. This guy held. It's coming all the way back, and the crowd is just like, what are you doing? And they show you on the big screen and they play the sound effects, if you're on the road, and it's not good. So that's my number 4.
I surprisingly have no football ones in here.
Okay.
I surprisingly have no football picks in here. Let me tell you about my number 4. Recently, I'll bring her up again. My lovely girlfriend, Caitlin, has put me onto the sport of gymnastics. And I've gotten to watch a few college gymnastics matches. They're not the most exhilarating things to watch. There's some cool parts of it. But as I watch this, I think that there would be nothing more embarrassing than doing one of those flips or getting yourself on the beam and then just wiping out. Trying to do a hard trick and then you land it funny and then you just stumble or fall. Because to me, that whole sport hinges upon balance. It hinges upon style and landing and like beauty, like you kind of got to look good as you do it. And to do something that just kind of makes you look unathletic, to me, just with all of the experts that are watching, I just like I cringe a little bit. Like when I watch this and I see like these small schools versus these big schools, and I see like maybe a small school athlete kind of like trip or something, I'm just like, ooh, like that's tough. That's tough. Would not want to be in that position. So give me the gymnast at number 4.
I like that, and I kind of like, Ethan, that we are unintentionally sprinkling in a little like teaser for the Olympics. Like
Yeah. Oh, sure.
we're not just giving you like 5 basketball picks for this. We're
Oh
going
no,
like
yeah.
we got to cover everything.
We're spreading our weight out. We're
Yes.
spreading our weight out. And so you already did your 3, so let me give you my 3 really quick. So my 3 spot, another Olympic sport. I'm gonna head to the track, and I'm gonna head to the hurdles. Tripping and falling over a hurdle might be, just in theory. I don't even know if I've ever seen it, but in theory, I've heard stories of people practicing and doing this. Not only is it just like embarrassing to not do it correctly, but like when you trip over a hurdle, it's loud. Like it's a loud fall. So like when you trip over it, you're like boom, boom, and the hurdle itself makes a noise as it hits the ground. But then you got to watch the camera follow everybody else that's running. Meanwhile, there's one person on the ground right here that just couldn't get over the last one. And even it, because like sometimes it could like injure you, and you're just laying there, like
Right.
everyone else is completing the heat, and you're on the ground after you tripped over the hurdle. But to me, that's embarrassing. That's my number 3.
I thought of this one, but I didn't go with it. But like, I love it because you're right about that last part about getting hurt, because it depends. Like if it's your lead foot, like you're probably fine. You might even stick the landing, but you're done. If it's that back knee that's following and that bangs up against that metal, and you're like, or that whatever material it is. I didn't run track, but like, yeah, it is loud and it's gotta hurt, man.
Oh yeah.
But, my number 4, or my number 2, sorry. So this one probably could have been number 1 for me, but I went with it because I got a good one for 1. But number 2, getting legitimately knocked out. I'm talking like boxing. I'm not like a TKO, not like you just don't get up from the count. I'm talking like you get knocked out cold in like the 8th round, and you're like on the ground. You know what I mean? On the canvas or whatever.
Yeah.
Or this could even qualify in hockey. I mean, if you just get your butt handed to you in a fight in hockey, it's like, that's embarrassing, because you were about it. You mess with it. You drop the gloves, whatever you did, and then you just get your butt handed to you. That would suck.
Yeah. Oh, this is this is hard because obviously there's so many embarrassing things that could happen in any sport. Some are gonna hit closer to home. I struggled putting like the UFC, the boxing, the football, the hockey ones in, because I feel like if you're physically putting your body on the line to like get hurt and like to literally throw yourself at somebody, like I feel like that warrants a bit of respect, to where if you do something embarrassing, you're in a way like risking your like life a little bit to like go out there and like fight. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So like I don't know. That's my take on it. I could totally see that though, because if you get knocked out, that clip lives with you for the rest of your life.
It's the footage that they get and the memes that come from it, and the trolling. Like, dude, you get roundhouse kicked in the face and you're out cold. That's tough.
So at the number 2 spot, this is a sport that personally I've never had any experience doing, have a little experience watching. I don't know if this ever happens, but just in theory, if it did happen, I can imagine this being so terrible. And the reason why it's at my number 2 spot is because doing this sport correctly is the name of the sport, and that is diving. If you belly flop on a dive, like you do something wrong and you smack on the water, the reason why I put this at number 2 is because, yes, that is extremely painful and that is extremely embarrassing. That's totally not what you're supposed to do in the sport. But that moment where you have to go underwater and you have to live with the fact that you just did that, and you have that moment of silence before you have to show your face to the world again. That's why I put it at number 2, is because, yes, you belly flop, but then you have to live with you mentally have to live with the fact that you just did that. So now you're underwater and you get like 3 seconds and you're just like, I should just stay down here probably. I don't even want to show my face to the rest of the world. And then you come up, and then everyone's like,
Yeah, I
ooh.
was just gonna say that's what it would be for me. It's when you're underwater, you're almost
And
like in an
you
alternate
probably hear
universe,
it.
and you
Yeah.
just hear that like echo, ooh.
And then you come out of the water and you see it on the big screen, and you're just
Yeah,
like, dang,
not good.
tough.
That's a great pick by you. How about us? A little swimming, a little diving, both.
Yeah,
In the
sure.
picks for me. All
Why
right, I'll
not?
round it out. This one is very simple, and it might be a little lame, but it definitely to me is number one. It's the number one sport in America. It's American football, and when you drop a wide open pass, if you're a receiver, a tight end, that's what you're paid to do. I'm not talking like the quarterback throws it a little high, goes through your hands like that. That is what it is. But I'm talking like breadbasket. I'm thinking like Ethan. This is an insane callback, but Ted Ginn, remember him? He would.
Oh, yeah.
Ted Ginn would have it over the shoulder, perfect pass, and it would just go through. And it's like, dude, those are game-defining plays in a sport where you only play, in his career, 16 games, now 17 games. Like, how many games, Ethan, came down to one score, one play? How many teams in the standings came down to one win or one loss? Like, those moments. Quarterback does his job. He puts it on the money for you. You don't do your job. So that's my number one, because whenever that happens, and when it happens to someone who's a part of my team, like that I'm rooting for, I am livid as a fan.
Yeah. And it's kind of like that diving thing where it's like you get paid to do this one job.
Yes.
You get a wide receiver, you get paid to catch the ball. Like, and if you can't do that, like there's probably so many people out there too like, that probably would have caught that, you know? Like we as fans watch that and we're like, I could have caught that. Obviously, there's a lot more that goes into it. But yeah, they get paid to do it. And it kind of makes the sport human a little bit too, though, where nothing is guaranteed. You know what I'm saying?
Totally. But it's just like you said, I don't know how you would break down the wide receiver position. I'd say it's probably like 30% runner routes, 70% hands. Like you got to catch the ball, man. You know
But I mean, if you catch anything that's in your box, you will have a spot. I feel like,
For sure. Yeah.
Because if a quarterback can precisely put it anywhere and you just catch it, I can't imagine you not having a spot on the team. Yeah. Shoot, that's a good one. I really struggled. So my number one, and this kind of pertains to a lot of sports, but I'm going to make it specific because it's a little bit personal to me because I've been in this position before. Airballing a game-winning shot. Airball, and I'm talking basketball specifically.
Yeah.
And I'm going to paint a specific picture, right? Let's say you are on the losing end right now, and it is 2 minutes left in the game, and you're coming back, and you watch basketball. We're in March Madness. The momentum changes, right? And you are making a comeback. You're inching, you're hitting threes, you're hitting shots, and all of a sudden, it's a 1-point game, and all of a sudden, you have the ball, and there's 5 seconds left, and everybody's standing up. Everyone is looking at this game. Everyone knows that the momentum, the story, this epic that has been told throughout the past 48 minutes of this game leads to a game-winning shot. And to just go out there and throw up a stinker, talk about just a gut-wrenching feeling. The fans this is the thing. The fans aren't even like booing or like angry. It's more of like confusion. Like, what just happened? And then you as the player got to just walk off and be like, I can't believe I just did that. What am I doing? Why am I playing this sport right now? And to think like the other team now just knowing like, oh gosh, just like having everything pointing towards the good. And then quick, like I relate this, if we're talking football, I relate this to a game-winning drive and then just shanking the game-winning field goal. Like everything was pointing to, yes, we have this. We have a chance. We're going to win this. Boom, kick goes right. Jake Moody, or I think of Tyler Bass on the Bills against the Chiefs this past year. And then the kick goes right, and then no one remembers the game that could have been. You know, nobody remembers because everyone's going to look at is who had the W in the column.
Dude, that's awesome. So, that's a great. I mean, because to not only miss, but to airball, and then like you said, it's not like it's not the fans' reaction of like, oh, like if it's that far off, it's like what are we doing here? Who called?
Yeah.
Like, then you start to maybe look at the coach and like, what's the play here? Like,
yeah. And another thing too is like everybody's comments after the game are like, "You guys fought hard. Like that was a good fight." And you're just like, "It doesn't matter if it was a good fight. I should have made that. I should have been closer." You know what I'm saying? Like,
Oh
don't
yeah.
don't patronize me now. Don't patronize me. I deserve every ounce of disrespect for airballing that shot. Oh man, but
Great
we could go
idea.
on and yeah,
Great idea from you for this list. You always have these excellent creative ideas that spark good conversation. That was 20 minutes talking about that.
that was
That's
a fun
great.
list. That was a fun
It
list. That was a good
was.
time. Moving on, I wanted to shed some light because we're in the season of March Madness. We're in the season of NCAA basketball, dreams being accomplished, hearts being broken, the drama, the drama. But I didn't want to go over the fact that we had a very important guest on 2 weeks ago. No, 3 weeks ago. That goes by the name of David Brazil. We talked heavily about his hockey career at the University of Maine. Bear down, go Black Bears! And they recently played in uh, the NCAA men's hockey tournament, which happens the same time. Unfortunately, happens at the same time as March Madness for basketball, so it often gets overlooked. Maine lost their first game against Cornell in a heartbreaking fashion. It was a classic 4 versus 5 seed. But I reached out to our good friend David, and I wanted to get an official statement on how he felt about the season, how he felt about his career. So I wanted to share some thoughts from the beloved friend of the pod, David Brazil. So I approach him and I say, "Can I get an official statement from David about the season and his future in hockey?" David responds, and I quote, "I'm going to be bringing my talents back to Maine. Got unfinished business here. Go Black Bears. We have a return. David Brazil returning to the University of Maine for one more year. Unfinished business," he says. He also goes on to say he had a few offers. I'm assuming those are NHL related offers. I had a few offers, but weren't exactly what we were looking for. So it makes more sense to come back. I'm actually pumped. It didn't feel right leaving the way things ended. Going to be on a mission next year. So folks, if you haven't bought your stock in the University of Maine Black Bears hockey team, you need to buy some stock now because we're
Wow.
getting it at a good price, let me tell you. Because when Maine is on top next year, it's all downhill. It's all uphill. I'm thinking of like we're gaining speed and we're gaining momentum. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah,
So I
right.
guess
Like,
it's all looking up, but
yeah.
we're compiling. We're gonna break through some walls. So that's a little quote from our friend Dave. Trent, what's your gut reaction to that? As Dave being our first friend of the pod,
Well, I think it's awesome for you to put the reporter hat on and go get it straight from the horse's mouth, baby. I love that. It's always
people
best.
are calling me people are calling me the Schefter of college men's college hockey.
You got to go right to the source, and you got it. And no, Dave, honestly, great friend of ours, Ethan. We literally have known each other since we were like 5 years old. Like, super proud of you. Happy that you're coming back because it was a fun time following along with Dave and the Black Bears and U.S. Cellular.
Yeah.
How you doing?
Oh yeah. Hey,
Uh,
shout out US Cellular. Hey, sponsor. Who knows?
no, but all jokes aside, great season from Maine, and I'm just fired up that I'll be invested in that team moving forward. Because if Dave wasn't there, I mean, I probably wouldn't. I'd root more for my Spartans, who were also in that same tournament, lost to Michigan Wolverines the other night. And
Go blue.
congrats to Michigan, headed to the Frozen Four, as they call it in that tournament. But Ethan, great little follow up to a guest we had a month or so ago. David, we love you. We're so excited for the revenge tour, the unfinished business, as you called it.
Oh yeah. This guy's coming back for blood, and I don't know if you watched the game, Trent. I watched a part of it.
I
It
did
was kind
too.
of it was sad to see the main lose like that, but there's something so special about like watching a nationally televised game and hearing your homeboy's name on like
I
the
know.
announcers
Yes,
say, and here's David Brazil with the puck, and I'm
it,
like,
it
that's
is
my
weird.
friend.
It
And we've also had the honor of having another friend on ESPN. Our good friend Gavin Petty, our good friend Gianni, kicked for the Western Michigan Broncos. Getting to hear Gianni Petty walking out there to attempt a field goal. All eyes on you. But it's a really cool feeling, surreal, getting to see your buddy on there. So hopefully more people experience that in their lifetime. But
I want to throw this in there too, because you kind of, I'm not going to let you get off the hook with this. So when we were freshmen in college and you were playing for, was it Longwood?
No, it was Northland College.
Northland. I was way off. I didn't even have one of the words right, even though it's one word. But when you were playing, and I remember I could get you on ESPN Plus, so I would watch your games on ESPN Plus, and the announcer would never get your name right, whoever it was, like your
Nobody
last
ever
name.
does.
And I can relate there because I'm one letter off from Bailey, so everyone just calls me Bailey, Trent Bailey.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that was a thing too. Like freshman year, I'm sitting in my dorm, I'm watching Ethan Rychenga or Rycinga.
That's a tough look.
I'm like,
better, even a worse look to just get 50 pieced by the North Dakota State Bison or whoever it was.
Dude,
I'll tell you what. When I knew that I was going to be on ESPN Plus, there was a piece of me that was like, if we're losing by a lot, I'm gonna at least get my fair share of camera time. I'm gonna get my shots up, whether I was making them or not.
Oh, and you did.
Who knows, man? Look me up on the old ESPN. But no, it was cool. We love you, David. Going back to that, we love the University of Maine. Go Black Bears. But anyways, heading over to the other NCAA. Trent, we're a podcast full of accountability. If we are not accountable, who are we?
We are nothing.
What do we used to say? What do we used to say on the fantasy football pod?
You got it. If we're not accountable, what are we? We are nothing.
I feel like we wouldn't say accountable though. I feel like it was if we're not objective or
Yeah, it was objective. It was objective. That was yes.
Yeah. Then what are we? Because we need to follow up, if you may, and we need to respond to how we called the preview to March Madness a couple weeks back, whether it was good or bad. Now, this would probably be a lot more fun if we were calling everything right. But folks, to be completely honest, me and Trent are the bottom 10% of our little double tech podcast pool. So let me start here by first shouting out some of the people up top. We have Trent's bloodline, Miles Bally at the number 1 spot. We have our good buddy Spencer Woodruff at number 2. We have my old assistant basketball coach, Kurt Van Hecken, at number 3. And we have Trent's other brother, Brock Bally, at the 4 spot. Trent, 2 of the 3 brothers could figure it out, but you could not. Some may call it a black sheep moment.
Let me tell you this. Hang on. They picked UConn. Cowards. You got to pick.
Cowards.
You got to go out on a limb. You can't pick the favorite.
Yeah, that's tough. So I need a couple shout outs here. And the 5 spot. I think this is Carson Koenig. Somebody we graduated with back in Granville. Shout out Carson. If that is you, give us a holler on our socials because
for real. I played soccer with Carson. Great guy.
Yeah, I'm gonna feel totally bad if it's not Carson Koenig, but I think it is. So shout out Carson. I think it is too because he went to Purdue, and I don't know how I remember that. I have like a weird memory sometimes, and Carson did go to Purdue. Go Boilermakers. Shout out to let's see. Let's go to the bottom. Trent, do you know who this Weber fella is? Jay Weber on bottom, the 22 spot.
Oh, that's my cousin Jordan. Yeah. Jordan Weber. Yes. My bad.
Tough look for Jordan Weber. I also got a shout out. I've mentioned this cat a couple times in the podcast. Duncan Lapka. This is the student that holds me accountable every week to film the podcast. I'll see him tomorrow, but shout out Duncan for being second to last. Yeah, that's a rough look, bud. Rough look being on bottom there. So tough, but we still got a couple games left. Let's talk about Trent. Let's talk about what we called well and what we didn't necessarily call well. So I want to start with you. Is there anything specific that sticks out to you in terms of where you got to be like, I was completely wrong about this. I was completely right about this.
Well, there wasn't much I was right about for one. I'll tell you that. I mean, okay, so I think the only thing that I don't want to say really right about, but I called St. Mary's losing round 1. I don't even remember who the 12 seed was that beat them. Do you? I don't even.
GCU. Lopes
that's
up.
Right. Okay, it was the Lopes. Yes.
Retrospect, I'm mad at myself that I never just fully went all Lopes up. So I want to hold myself accountable, and I should have just went all Lopes up. That's on me. But it's still Lopes up.
You always. No, I just knew St. Mary's was fool's gold. They never win that conference. They finally did. Gonzaga finishes second in that conference. And then, of course, Gonzaga is the one that makes the run in the tournament. That's how that
Yeah,
goes, right?
that's tough.
As far as wrong, where do we start, man? I got nothing for you. I picked Auburn to win it all. They lost on, round one. 5 minutes later, Florida loses, who was my other dark horse to make a run. So those two teams losing within 5 minutes of each other, that's when I started going a little crazy, if you know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
Ethan. But is there anything that sticks out on your end?
Oh gosh, yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. Like, where do I start? Let's. I mean, I so something I think I was totally dead wrong about. I went on record saying that McNeese State was going to do some
Oh,
damage in this
me too.
tournament,
I said
and
the same
they
thing.
got smoked in the first round. They got killed. And I was watching that game, and they looked terrible, terrible. So that was immediately one that I just bit my tongue about and was like, you know what? There's always next round, or there's always the other picks that I made. I also went on record and I made a pretty egregious claim about how the SEC was fraudulent. And I would say that's like half right.
Yeah,
There,
sure.
I would say it's like half right because you have your SEC, I mean, not your SEC, you have your Alabama, you have your Tennessee, you have your teams that kind of made a run a little bit, but then you also have your actual fraudulence, such as Kentucky and Auburn, who both lost in the first round. So I think that kind of went halfway there. There's a couple gems and a couple not gems. I also focus here on, let's see, where is it? I thought Drake was going to be an underrated team. I think a lot of people thought Drake was
You
going to
know
be
what? You know
underrated.
what? That's one that I'll add to my correct column because Drake was the
Yeah,
sexy pick. Everyone was picking Drake, and I was like, dog, this Miles Rice kid for Washington State is the truth. They're gonna win. And they won kind of comfortably. It was a good game. They pulled away at the end though.
yeah, you did. And
But
as I listened back, I did remember that. I did
I
remember that
mean,
you saying something like that.
if I'm bragging about being right about a 7-10, we are scraping right now. Like this was a horrible tournament for your boy over here.
Yeah, it was
Terrible.
rough. Dude, for a hot second, I was like running our like friends league back home. I was running that league for a second. I was in like the 99.9th percentile for like a very long time. And then it was the Sweet 16 where things went incredibly, incredibly downhill. Or no. It might have been the round of 32. I don't know. I had Grand Canyon beating Alabama. I had Baylor going to like the Final Four. I had, you know, Duke nowhere near where they were supposed to go. But, we can't get too down on ourselves. This is how March Madness goes. You know, this is how March Madness goes. This is every single year. No brackets are perfect. Things get messed up. Uh, I think we should both hold ourselves accountable with saying that Purdue is fraudulent. I think we should both come out and
Yeah,
say that.
but here's
What
the
What do you
problem.
think, Trent?
No, I'm not gonna do that yet. I'm not gonna do that yet. Because here's
Come
the thing.
on, bro. Okay, go
Ethan, if
ahead.
they lose to NC State, everything we said is true. They just made the Final Four. Good for them. Like, if they lose to NC State, who's an 11 seed, the Cinderella of this tournament, who are, I think they're like 10.5-point dogs in this game, then everything we said holds true. You apparently have the best player in the country, Zach Edey, right? You shoot 100 free throws a game. You're steamrolling everybody. Good for you. I mean, the Tennessee game was a good game. But if they lose to NC State in the Final Four as a
I
one
don't know
seed,
how I feel about that claim though.
I'm
Because why
not.
are we
I'm
acting
not
like
going.
NC State's a bad team?
No, I don't think. I don't think that makes them bad. Here's the problem: is like the expectations change as the year goes, right? So
Right.
Purdue preseason number one, yeah, great. They pretty much lived up to that. They're a one seed in the tournament. Then it's like, okay, y'all got to make a Final Four because you haven't done it. I mean, last year you lost in
Mhm.
the first round. So not only do they win the first round, they crush everyone. Like they steamroll their way to the Elite Eight. Then they beat a good Tennessee team. Now you're in the Final Four against by far the worst team left in the field. I know there's only four, but the double-digit seed that shouldn't even be in this position, Ethan. If they even got to the ACC tournament championship and lost, they wouldn't be a tournament team still. They needed that automatic bid. They
That's
got
tough.
it by beating Duke,
Yeah.
or was it Bama? Either way, credit to them. They get in, and then You lose to that team when everything's pretty much on a silver platter for you to make the national championship game, and then anything can happen, of course. But you cannot fall asleep at the wheel here because they've had those expectations all year. That's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, and I mean, I see that side, but I just think I don't know. I just think there's flawed logic a little bit because like every single year, like it seems like Purdue loses a round of 32,
Yeah.
friggin' first 64 teams, the round of 64 even. Like we've seen Purdue lose. And I think that's where a lot of people thought Purdue was going to lose this year. I think a lot of people, when they initially claimed that Purdue were frauds, they kind of imagined Purdue losing in that like second round or third round. But like I think they pushed past that, and we can acknowledge like they are a good team right now. And yes, they're
Of
steamrolling
course.
teams, and like if we're hold on, I wanna match this up a little bit because if we're this might be controversial, Trent, because I know that this team holds a very close place in your heart. But I thought that society held Final Fours to a very high standard. And obviously, it's not winning the championship, but we count coaching success based on Final Four appearances, it seems like. Now, if you are discrediting a Final Four appearance, you also have to look at your very own Tom Izzo about Final Four appearances and not winning the whole thing. And he's done it a couple times.
I
Sure.
will stick my hand up there. I will say, yes, they do hang banners for Final Fours. It is a big deal. The difference is Tom Izzo. If you go look at the Final Fours Tom Izzo's made, he's done it as a 5 seed, he's done it as a 7 seed, he's done it as a 2 seed, whatever.
That's true. That's
Purdue,
true.
and also, this is the last thing I'll say on this matter because I don't want it to sound like I'm anti-Purdue. I don't like Purdue, but I really like Matt Painter. I was really happy for the fan base. Our friend Sam Coleman from back home was a manager on the Purdue
Shout
men's
out,
basketball
Sam.
team for a couple years. So like I'm happy for that, okay? But like they were the second most popular pick to win it all.
Yeah.
So I mean, even if like you're right, I think a lot of people saw the potential upset coming just because of recent history, but at the same time, they were one of the most popular picks to win it all. So in my eyes, you got to go do it, man. Like, and it wouldn't be if they lost to Tennessee. I don't think that would have been looked at as much of a failure as it would at making the Final Four and losing to NC State. You get what I'm saying? Like, I think.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but I just don't see it that way.
But okay, but you tell me. So losing to Tennessee, I don't think would have been a choke job. You're losing to the 2 seed in your or in your region, right? Losing to NC State is a choke job. You have the best player on the floor. This is a Cinderella team. You can't lose to NC State.
Yeah, but me and you know more than anybody, when teams get hot, it doesn't matter how good you are because any hot team can be any 1 seed. And you're not just looking, I don't want you to see NC State as just NC State, who's 11 seed. You're looking at the team that just rolled everybody they played, it seems like. Texas Tech, who was a 6 seed. They rolled Oakland, who I guess, if you're going by seeding, it wasn't that much of a surprise.
Well, they beat
them.
They
would turn around and rolled Marquette and Duke. They rolled the 2 seed, and so you could make an argument that this team was seeded too low, because they're clearly whooping up on all these teams. But like, as the way that the regular season went, 11 seed is fair because, like you said, if they didn't win the ACC tournament, they wouldn't be in the tournament at all.
So I feel like I'm talking in circles, but I want to hit this home real quick. So to bring it back to the heart of the matter, if the question is, were we wrong about Purdue? I was wrong about when they would lose. Obviously, they're in the Final Four. Was I wrong about them being fraudulent and choking in big moments? That would be true if they lose to NC State 100%. They're double-digit favorites. I almost said dogs. They're not dogs. They are heavy favorites in this game. And if you lose that game, NC State's a great story. But Ethan, you and I know how the internet works. We know how the media works. If it's DJ Burns, the big fella, walking off that court, headed to the national championship, and we got that shot of Zach Edey walk into the locker room, his college career is done. I mean, that to me, that's disappointing, given the way it happened.
Let's talk scenarios. So if Purdue does not win it all, is that in a way like a fraudulent tournament?
No,
or
because no.
Let's
go ahead.
So I want to know, like, so let's say they win against NC State. If they lose against UConn, are you still like, like, oh, like they're frauds because they were supposed
No,
to win it all?
no, of
Or are you
course
like,
not.
oh, they finally made it to the big stage?
So I'm glad you brought this up because yes, the two big humps for Purdue was get to the Final Four because they haven't done that since 1980. So they deserve credit for that. I'm just simply saying who you're matched up against now is a big deal
Yeah.
because you're right. I think UConn's the better team. UConn has won every game by double digits. So if UConn were to
UConn
beat,
is crazy.
if they were, they're a wagon. So if they were to beat Purdue in the final, I would not hold that against Purdue. I would hold it against Purdue if they lose to NC State,
Yeah.
who really wasn't a tournament team at all. They just won the ACC tournament, stole the bid. And that's why you got to love this tournament because to your credit earlier, I mean, you said you get hot, it's one and done, and some teams just roll. They crushed Duke in that second half. It was awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to discredit the Wolfpack. I'm just saying pressure's on Purdue. And I do think Purdue will win.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah. I mean, that kind of covers all the stuff we thought. I mean, there's so many more things that we thought were going to go well versus things that didn't go well. Those were a lot of the big points there. We wanted to talk about Purdue. We wanted to talk about the SEC. And we definitely wanted to talk about like our absolute, like, total wrong about picks. And we're okay with criticism. So that's why we came out front and we were accountable. We're holding our hands up. We're
Right.
accountable about it. With that being said, why don't we give our predictions? Because we're so good at predicting college basketball. Let's
Yeah.
give our predictions for the Final Four. Trent, I currently have UConn as an 11.5 point favorite against Alabama
Yep.
and Purdue as an 8.5 point favorite against NC State. Can you give me a rundown, your opinion on how you think this is going to play out? And even you could even go as far as the national championship as well, if you want to move past this.
Well, no, UConn is a wagon. Like I said, they've won, 10 straight tournament games now over the course of 2 years, and they've won them all by double digits. So you have to give
Yeah.
them their credit. They also are a very, very intense defensive team. Okay, so I think they match up really well against really anyone. A great defensive team is going to match up well against anyone, and you see that with them blowing everyone out. But specifically against a team like Alabama. Alabama likes to run. They play fast. Their bread and butter is we're going to just outrun you and outshoot you. And they're averaging 90 points a game in this tournament, Bama is. So they're going to want to make it a track meet. UConn has the athletes and the defense to prevent said track meet. And I think UConn's going to, I don't know if they're going to roll. That's a big spread, but I could see Bama with a backdoor cover, like 8 or 9 point loss. But I do think UConn will be in control the whole time and never really a doubt, if that makes sense. And
yeah,
go ahead.
I mean, I kind of agree. I'm going to take a little different route to it though. I think Alabama is the perfect because so when I used to take classes on game theory, we used to talk about how game theory only works when every player involved or every team involved is playing at the best possible, most efficient strategy that they could. That makes
Okay.
game theory true. So in this sense, I feel like when you put UConn against any NCAA team that plays the game the traditional way, where you're calling plays, running man defense, when you put UConn against any team, they're killing them. They are the best NCAA team at the game of basketball to its beauty. With that being said, I think Alabama is the perfect wild card team that could totally throw that off because, like you said, they love to run. They love to get out there. They love to get shots up. They love to shoot. They love to hound on defense. I think they are also a very intense defensive team, too. They took my GCU Lopes and made them look like a JV team in the second half that just had no clue what they were doing.
Bama has looked very, like, for how good UConn, and UConn's getting all the press, and rightfully so. I mean, they were the odds-on favorite coming into this thing, and they're big favorites in this specific game. But I do agree with you that, like, Bama deserves a lot of credit. They've had a great tournament.
Oh, yeah. Totally great. And Alabama is gritty. They they're a very handsy team. They like have active hands, and I think that's very important when you're playing a fundamentally sound team like UConn, because things like that can put everything that you once knew to bed, because I feel like teams don't usually come in being like, I'm going to reach a ton. I'm just going to be a solid defender. Alabama comes in and they gamble for steals. They gamble for things like that.
Yeah.
And those gambles turn into quick buckets. So how I think this is going to go, and again, I have no credibility here. But how I think this is going to go,
Neither one of us
I
do.
think
I don't either.
I think Alabama might even take a little bit of the lead at half. I think I could see them getting out in front early and kind of shell shocking UConn a little bit. But ultimately, I can see the better coach, Hurley, adjusting and UConn having a bigger second half and ultimately running away with it. But I could see Alabama keeping it close for a good half of the game.
Bama's best chance to win is to run them off the floor. So I like your theory of like they're going to just come out and punch you in the mouth right away, and then they're going to take like a 6-point lead in the halftime and then basically duplicate the first half and the second and really deliver that knockout punch probably 8 minutes into the second half and just ride it to victory. So I like that theory. I'm also going to be rooting for Bama because I mean, UConn, I got nothing against UConn, but we've seen UConn in our lifetime even. I think they've won 4 in our lifetime. They won last year, of course.
Yeah.
So I would love to see Bama win for our good buddy Trevor. And then also, I think Bama has the most dangerous shooter on the floor in Mark Sears, excuse me. I'm not going to say he's the best because UConn's got several guys that I think are just better spot-up shooters than Mark Sears. But Mark Sears can pull up. He can handle the ball.
He's streaky.
He's very streaky. So this is the type of game where if they can play at their own
That's
pace,
what I'm saying.
he could have like a 5-3 first half. And you're like, okay, Mark Sears is unconscious right now. I like that. I'll be rooting for Bama.
And I think you made a comment at the beginning of the tournament, Trent, where you're like looking at these teams, and if they like just have one off day, like it can be the end of things. And like this scenario, if Alabama just shows up and they have that boom or bust potential, I feel like, and they've just been on this hot streak where they've been booming, you know. And if they show up again, and if they show up hot against an also hot UConn team, I could see it going both ways. I could see it being close. But let's move on to Purdue and NC State. Personally, I think Purdue dominates NC State. I think this is not going to be a game. NC State has been an underdog in every single game, it seems like, maybe except the Oakland game. But they've covered and they've won outright in every single game. So who knows? I think Zach Edey is one of the most unguardable players. I would love, and I was telling this to Katie this weekend, I would love to see Edey and Klingon in the final. I think that would be an insane matchup, personally, because that guy Klingon is a dog. He is everything that, and I'm going to make some Creighton fans mad here. He's everything Kalkbrenner hopes he could be in Klingon. So that's what I'll say there. But I think Edey is the masterclass. And the biggest thing about him is he can hit free throws. He gets fouled every single time he touches the ball. And he can make free throws. And like you said, they shoot 100 a game. So if they just rebound and make sure he gets the ball every possession, they're fine.
Again, I want to reiterate this because I'm about to go on a tirade that's going to sound like I'm just hating on Purdue. Disclaimer. I agree with you. This is another situation where I will be rooting like hell for the Wolfpack, and I think Purdue is going to win by 20. So take everything I'm about to say with that in mind. I hate watching Purdue, okay? I hate it. I'll also throw in the disclaimer of Michigan State, the team that I'm a fan of. I would hate watching Michigan State if I wasn't an alum and a diehard fan. Because they kind of play a similar way where it's just slow, taking the air out of the basketball, shooting free throws. We're going to defend and rebound. It's not necessarily a fun watch. Purdue is a staggeringly boring watch. That shot on the TV, the image of Zach Edey looking up at the free throw line and dribbling the ball that you see 50 times a game. Dude scored 40 points. Good for him. Half of them came at the free throw line. I can't stand it. With that being said, I do think he's going to take care of business. This is typically where you see the Cinderella runs, and North Carolina State is a Cinderella. Again, I want to harp on this because this matters. They were not a tournament team. They were not a top 68 team in America. What they did was they got hot. They got their crap together. They went on a run in the ACC tournament and won it. Now, that's all good and fine. If you lose the ACC tournament, you're out. Magic ends. Credit to them for keeping their head down. And you saw that they hit that against Virginia in the ACC tournament. They hit that three to bank it in to send it to OT. Like, it could have ended there. And since then, all they've done is won. So they deserve credit, but I think of Jim Larinaga's George Mason team. I think of Shaka Smart's VCU team. I think of even last year a little bit with Florida Atlantic. Like the Final Four is where you see, whether it be at the buzzer or whether it's just a rout, that's where you see the Cinderella. The clock strikes midnight. Now, the ironic thing is that maybe the most iconic Cinderella ever was NC State in 1983.
Yeah, I was just going to bring that up.
So 41 years later, if they're able to duplicate some of that, they'll have a chance, of course, but it's going to be a tall order, no pun intended, against Zach Edey.
The stars are aligned for NC State to make some magic happen, for sure. But I think me and Trent are in the same boat where it seems like Purdue should win this handily. But you kind of would think that for the other games that NC State was in too. Like, I get how maybe some people saw a conference game, Duke, NC State going either way, but they're a good team. But Purdue is simply better, in my opinion. That's probably enough for March Madness. There's going to be more to talk about after the Final Four and after the championship, but we want to get rolling here. We're running out of 50 minutes, so we want to kind of get through what we got to get through. Let's do a quick segment on the throne room and the doghouse, our bread and butter play. I have a couple college basketball picks in the season of March Madness. Trent, do you as well?
I'm 2 for 2 in college basketball as well. Yeah.
All right. Can I start with my doghouse?
Yes.
I don't know how I feel about this, to be completely honest. I don't know if I'm alone in this. I don't know if this is controversial to say, but I'm going to say it. I'm going to head on over to women's college basketball, and I'm going to put the LSU women's college basketball team in the doghouse. I don't know what it is about this team, but they are just constantly in the media talking about something. And I see it on my page. I see their coach saying stuff. She wears those obnoxious, suits or whatever. But listen, I hinge this doghouse pick on this. If you are good, people will talk for you. Okay? If you are good, people will talk for you. You should not be talking about yourself in the media in that light as much as LSU does. And they love, like, in my opinion, they love to come at like the media and talk about how like they're underdogs and they like everyone's doubting them. Like, you are a Division I SEC basketball player. Like, I don't think anybody was doubting a big program like LSU to make a run. Yet you're constantly in the media like dogging on other people, talking about how you're like the best thing since Adam. And like I don't know. I find it obnoxious. I find it irritating. With that being said, give me Iowa -2 tonight. Give me Iowa -2, and I hope their run ends tonight. Personally, maybe that's just hometown bias. I'm right by Iowa here. We got a lot of Hawkeye fans around here, so who knows?
This is
revenge tour. Caitlin Clark revenge tour.
This is so funny because I'm being completely 100% serious. I almost picked Kim Mulkey, the head coach of LSU, to put in the throne room because so let me just give you a little. This is the spin zone here. She is very controversial. She's a very strong-minded woman. She's very vocal about her politics. When Brittany Griner was over in Russia and she was an ex-Baylor player, Kim Mulkey used to coach at Baylor. So it was like a whole there was a lot of stuff there that she was saying or wasn't saying, and people don't like her, okay?
Yeah.
She chooses – I listened to a whole 20-minute interview about this today, okay? There was a national college basketball, a women's college basketball.
Let me do this, Trent. You know so much about this stuff. Like, you, like, give me the insights. So keep going.
This morning on our show, we had a national women's college basketball writer on to talk about this game because this is the biggest game in women's college hoops in a long time. Like, they're going to draw 10 million viewers tonight, E. So, long story short, she basically brought up the fact that Kim Mulkey is so passionate and protective of her players that she takes on the media's criticism. She puts herself out there with those outfits. She puts herself out there with those comments to attract and defend her players. And let's not get it twisted. This is the defending national champs, LSU Tigers. I mean, they won last year, Angel Reese and that whole squad. So,
yeah,
I do think there's that angle of it. And for her to stand up, she was standing up against, this is another thing that I hate. There was a bunch of I shouldn't say false, but a little bit of dodgy journalism going on like this. I think it was the Washington Post or the LA Times. It was one of the two. And long story short, they were writing a piece on the game, and they worked a lot of opinion into it, which I'm not going to throw the J school card in there, but as someone who did go to journalism school, that's a huge no-no. You don't do that. People get away with it these days. It drives me nuts. You're supposed to report on the game. You don't throw in your little spin on what happened. You just tell us what happened. And I think we're getting away from it's a bigger picture. Okay, so I was going to maybe give Kim Mulkey some credit. And it's interesting you're going the other way.
Because she got out and defended her players, right?
Yes, that's what it all came from. And she got out in front of this big hit piece that's being written about her. So I reserve the right, by the way, if this is like going to be really controversial that I said all this in a week when this hit piece comes out, that's my bad. But anyways, I'll make my doghouse pick very quick because I kind of alluded to it when we were talking about Purdue. College basketball referees, you're driving me nuts. Every time Zach Edey gets breathed on, it's a foul. I know he just scored 40 points. He deserves his credit, but he's got that Shaq syndrome.
A foul is a foul.
I know, but a lot of them aren't fouls. A lot of them aren't, is my point. Like, I have a beef with a lot of the fouls that get called. That's all. I just hope, I'm preemptively throwing this out there. RG3 tweeted this out, so shout out to him, because this is his take. We're about to see Zach Edey versus DJ Burns for NC State. Let him play. Do not turn this into a whistle fest 5 minutes into the game. Let him play a little bit.
I'm down with that.
So that's all. Who's got your throne? Who's got the crown?
So in my throne room, I was going to throw NC State in there, but that's too easy. I am going to stay in college basketball, but I'm headed to Division II. I'm going to head to Minnesota State, who actually won the NCAA tournament for Division II in both their men's and their women's programs. So they dominated NCAA basketball for Division II this year in both men's and women's basketball. So I thought that was really cool. Shout out Minnesota State. Give Division II some love. Still college athletes, still important people. So that's awesome. Good for them.
It's also funny you say that because I actually caught some of that men's game, that men's championship game. I was just on TV. It was on big CBS, like during Saturday, during the day, I think.
Hey, there you go.
So there you go. You mentioned NC State's a little too easy, but I'm going to give credit. I'll narrow it down to Kevin Keats, the head coach. So he was he was an assistant at Louisville, and then he was at some other mid-major, and then worked his way back into Power 5, and he was going to get fired. I mean, he was on the hot seat. He was going to get fired. It's like his third season at NC State or something like that. And if they didn't make this run, he'd get canned. I mean, even if they would have lost their first game, in the first round to Texas Tech, he might have been canned. So he deserves a lot of credit. He's got these guys playing. And DJ Burns, after the game against Duke, they asked him post-game, they're like, hey, what was the biggest difference here? And he's like, we kind of just got our stuff together. Like, we are showing up on time, and we're paying attention in the huddles and all that kind of stuff. And I just think that's more coaching than anything to get those guys locked in. So I want to give him some credit because I think the run's going to end, unfortunately, in the Final Four. But Kevin Keats, you bought yourself some job security.
Yeah, it'll be exciting, man. It'll be exciting when that game happens. So yeah, a couple throne room and doghouse picks. And folks, don't take them too seriously. You know, we have some fun with these, so don't act like we're coming at anybody specifically or we're hating on anything, or, you know, these are subjective picks where we're kind of looking at it from a viewer perspective, a fan standpoint. Trent, we're gonna head right into our closing segment here, the reflection and projection. And to be honest, I feel like I've been making these reflections a little bit easy on you. And I have one that is going to test you, in my opinion, a little bit today.
Okay.
When we first birthed this segment, we said we wanted to focus on teams that maybe were forgotten about in time, that maybe got close to winning but never did. And I feel like we have touched on those, but we've also gotten away from that a little bit. And I feel like I've gotten close with your Michigan States, your Detroit Red Wings when we had David Brazil on. I'm going to give you a true reflection today, and I want to see what you know. So I did some research. 'Tis the season. MLB opening weekend just happened, and I did some research on the best MLB teams that never won it. And I wanted to be fair. I went to a couple different sites. I did a lot of scrolling, a lot of reading. I wanted to pick one that was in our lifetime and that was like kind of widely agreed on. And one of the most common teams that I saw, the 2011 Philadelphia Phillies, who did not win a pennant.
Yeah. I can't name one. I can't name one.
Not even one.
No. You have checkmated me on that one, my brother. I can't give you baseball is hockey's lowest for me. Baseball is like third of the four, and 2011 Phillies, nothing comes into my head. Not one guy. I got nothing. I'm sorry.
You can't give one feeler. You don't have any feelers out there?
Zero.
Can I? Okay. Good. Hey, you know what? And we got to be transparent as hosts of this show. We can't change it. We got to stick with this. So we have on record. Trent, I'm finally stumping Trent. You know what I think we should do, Trent? I think we should do every time you get stumped. So like they'll get harder. Every time you get stumped, I feel like it should switch. Where now
I'll give it
have
to you.
To give week. Me one next
week.
Okay. And the reason why this is your segment is there's a good chance that I could just get stumped every time. I could get stumped every time because like I don't really know history like that. But there were actually a few people that I did know on this list, and I want to shed some light on these names because we have fans out there that are probably trying to come up with some names in our head. So I want to affirm them. Ryan Howard, first baseman. He's a big name, super slugger on that team. Chase Utley, one of the bigger second basemen, one of the best second basemen of that time. Jimmy Rollins, shortstop. I remember a lot of these guys from playing MLB The Show back in the day, man. Shane Victorino and Hunter Pence.
The flying Hawaiian, Shane Victorino. That dude would he would crowd the plate so hardcore and get he'd get base on balls. Okay, I remember him with the Red Sox. I don't remember him with the Phillies. My bad.
So Carlos Ruiz was in there. Placido Polanco and Raul Ibanez was in there. Now, the best part of this team that every site talked about was their rotation. Their pitching rotation was cracked.
Okay.
So they had Roy Halladay, rest in peace. They had Cliff Lee, Cole Hamels, Roy Oswalt, and Vance Worley, a rookie Vance Worley. And in my opinion, like all those names I recognized, and I can't believe they all played on the same team, honestly. So, but this team went 102-60, finished first in the NL East. They lost in the divisional series to their rivals, the St. Louis Cardinals. So tough look for them. But yeah, that was our reflection. So Trent will come back next time we do a show, and he'll quiz me now and see how much I can get. But Trent, do you have any comments about that team, about MLB before we ended up here?
No, I don't. I did not watch a whole lot of baseball. I mean, I watched the Tigers because the Tigers were, when we were growing up, Ethan, that was like all we.
They were kind of good.
And like I'm talking like after that kind of 04 Pistons through like the Stanley Cup for the Wings in 08, like that weird little sweet spot from probably 08 to 2015, the Tigers were phenomenal. They were like must-watch TV. So I watched the Tigers. I didn't watch a whole lot of baseball, man. I really did. And I play the Immaculate Grid every morning where, you know, you play that game.
Is that where you have to like guess the players on the teams and stuff?
Yeah, it's a 9-square grid, and it'll have like the Tigers logo over here and the Cardinals logo over here. You got to pick a player that played for both the Tigers and the Cardinals.
Oh yeah.
So that is always, and they have it for the NBA and the NFL too. And I can usually get at least 7 out of 9 for the NBA and NFL. MLB, I'm like, if I get 3, it's a good day. So you completely got me on that one, man. I got nothing for the 2011 Phillies, but hey, shout out to them. What a good run. Just it came up a little short.
Yeah. Hey, that's how it goes sometimes. But Trent, why don't you close us out here? We got some Tigers baseball starting. We got the women's Final Four starting. Let's get after it. Let's have a good little night of sports here. But why don't you close us up with a little projection? Project us into the rest of our weeks.
We got some great sports coming up tonight, Ethan. So I'm specifically talking to you here. It's now 7:13 p.m. as we finish up recording. We got that big basketball game tipping off here. We got Tigers' first pitch coming up here going for 4-0. So this is from Eminem's Berserk. All right.
Oh,
Kick your shoes off, let your hair down, and go berserk all night long. Let's do it.
come
Here we
on,
go.
everybody. Let's
I
do it.
probably won't sleep tonight. I'm going to be on fire all night. We got great sports. Let's go.
Folks, we appreciate you listening as always. Go ahead, if you're listening on a streaming platform, go ahead and throw us a like or turn notifications on, subscribe, whatever you do on there. Then on YouTube, why don't you throw a like and a comment as well? Tell us if you agree. If you played any of those sports that we mentioned at the beginning about embarrassing moments and you want to shed some light, maybe tell some stories about that, we'd love to hear them. But folks, as always, we love you and we appreciate you, and we will hear and see you next time on the Double Tech Podcast.